Hello and welcome back to the Coffee Dates podcast with Georgia Patocco, where I will be your host. We're in the Let's Catch Up Over Coffee era, so grab yourself your favourite coffee and come and join me. Hello guys, so I am back. I am sorry that it's been a little while since I made an episode. I really was hoping to commit to like 1 or even 2 a week, but I feel like we all know how it is with life, so I can't really commit to that right now. And I've said it before, I want to enjoy doing these episodes. I don't want to be forcing myself to do them. But thank you to all the people that have actually asked me, like, am I going to make another podcast episode because they enjoy listening to them. It actually means a lot and then drives me to wanting to like make another episode. But anyway, let's just get straight on to the topic today. So the title is FOMO Living in Sydney. Now, I've related the FOMO topic to living in Sydney just because of course that is where I am living. I've lived in Australia now for around 6 years, and recently I just keep seeing a lot of posts coming up on groups that are made for people that are living in Sydney or Australia talking about this type of thing. So that's why I wanted to relate and reference it to being in Sydney especially. But honestly, we're going to be talking about FOMO, and no matter where you are in the world, I'm sure you felt it at some point. So really you can relate this to anywhere. But I will be referencing to Australia and Sydney. So let's talk about FOMO. First of all, let's break it down. So FOMO, fear of missing out. Now, I feel like when you hear the word FOMO, it just sounds like slang. You don't really take it seriously. But we're going to be diving a little bit deeper to when people feel FOMO and it's actually making them feel sad, left out. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper. Firstly, I want to say kind of why I've decided to bring up this topic today. So I was actually voice noting a friend the other day and we were speaking about this type of thing, and she was like, you should do a podcast episode on this. And it was actually something that I was already thinking about. So there was that. And also, like, as I mentioned earlier, like, so I'm a part of a lot of like Facebook groups for people that are living in Sydney or Australia. Now, these groups are mainly used for, if you want to sell something, like you're selling a bed frame, a table, if you're looking to join a sports group, you're looking for an apartment, all of that type of stuff. They post it on this page and it's there to help you and have people that are in the same boat as you that you can like relate to and stuff. But it's usually just been there for like things like getting yourself set up in Australia, like what bank do people use, how do they transfer money from their overseas account to their Australian account. But recently, there's so many posts, I would say more than all the other stuff, that keep popping up about people just feeling lonely in Sydney and people just asking for advice of where to turn to because their mental health is not good at the moment, or just asking questions about like, is living in Sydney / Australia really worth it? Is it what everyone bigs it up to be? And yeah, just people struggling in general with all of those types of things. Now, there's so many different things and ways I could take this conversation. I have so many different thoughts on it, and I think judging by people's reactions and comments, so does everyone else. And I actually seen a really good post the other day on this same Facebook page, and it was like I had wrote it. I don't know, like I read it and I was like, this is exactly the type of advice I would give and what I would take and what I did do when I came out to Australia. And I actually did a podcast episode a while back about moving to Australia, and I spoke about a lot of these things in it. Now, this post basically said how they themselves as well have been seeing all of these posts coming up about people's mental health not being great, like people struggling out here and if to go back home and not knowing what they should do. And this post basically said like, you need to put yourself into uncomfortable situations in order for it to work out here. Like, you can't just move out here and think everything is going to fall into place. You've got to work for things. Like, at the end of the day, like, a lot of people, like, I know Irish in particular, there's a lot of you guys that come out and you already have groups of friends or family that are out here, so maybe it's a little bit easier setup for you to come out to. But there's a lot of people that are coming out here and like not knowing anyone, and that's pretty much what I did. Like, I knew the odd people, I had like friends of friends and stuff, but I didn't have any close friends or family. So you have to think, like, you're coming out with nothing, like, you're starting a new life, like, you can't expect it to be easy anyway. Like, you have to understand that there's going to be moments of feeling lonely. So this post was basically saying how you don't need to wait for other people to do stuff with you or focus so hard on making new friends. Like, as much as human interaction and connection is one of the most important things, like, you can't expect that to happen straight away. So you have to do the steps and actions to put yourself in situations where you can then begin to form friendships and just, relationships. So this post was saying how it's so important just to, again, like I said, instead of waiting around for other people to do stuff with you, to just get out and do stuff like on your own and start to enjoy your own company. Get out, go for a walk. Like, there are so many things around here, especially Sydney, that you can go and do. There's so many coastal walks you can do, bush walks you can do. Like, the transport is really, really good. Like, there's trams, there's buses, there's trains. And if there's a popular tourist destination you want to go to, I can guarantee there's going to be some sort of public transport that can get you there. So again, instead of waiting around for other people to do these things with you, go out and do them yourself. Research yourself, research things and places to see in Sydney. And again, there's so many apps on your phone these days that will literally give you the direct routes and times of all of the buses or trains you need to get. It's so easy. It will literally work it out for you, and you've just got to go and do it. Like, if you want to go to the Blue Mountains, yes, it's a little bit further out, but there's literally a train that will get you there, and you can go and do these things on your own. Like, I know it may not sound appealing to some people to go and do these things on your own, but if you're here and you don't know anyone, what's the better option? Just sat in your room looking at the wall, like moping around that you have no friends, or just getting out and doing and seeing things whilst also being in a place where you could then potentially meet people. So I just thought that was great advice from this post, and it's literally the advice again that I gave in my Australia episode a while back. Go and do stuff on your own and put yourself in these situations where you are around people and have the potential to meet people. Like, if I think back to when I first came to Australia, like, I didn't arrive in Sydney. I started in the Gold Coast. But when I did first get to Sydney, I remember one of the girls I was staying with, like, she'd been living here for a while, so she was working every day, and so were her friends that she introduced me to. So the options were sit in her apartment all day until she finished work, doing nothing, moping around, or getting myself out and doing some things on my own until she finished work. And of course I chose that option. So I would go down even just to the beach and chill on the beach all day. And as we all know, Coogee Beach is so busy and full of people and full of like-minded people. And there was one day I was laying there and another younger girl came over and she was like, I want to get in the water, do you mind just like looking after my stuff whilst I get in? Obviously I was like, yeah, sure. So she left her stuff with me and she went for a swim. Now, I'm sure like a lot of people would be like, I can't be asked to interact with someone I don't know. They'd let this person come and get their things and go, and that would be that. That would be the small interaction. But again, I put myself out there, and when she came back to grab her stuff, I was like, hey, like, you can just like chill with me if you want, like sunbathe with me. And again, like, she could have been wanting to do that as well, but maybe not wanting to be like weird and say, can I like chill with you? So I just put myself out there and said that to her, because at this stage I didn't really know many people, so I was doing everything I could to meet people. And she ended up chilling with me. We ended up just clicking, and then we were both hungry, and we went and sat in like a restaurant together and got some food. And this was someone I did not know, like we weren't from the same places at home. But we just got chatting. We're both in the same boat, didn't know many people out here, hadn't been out in Australia for long. And yeah, and turns out we did actually get each other's number because we were going to a festival, the same festival like a couple weeks later or something, but we didn't end up ever actually seeing each other again or connecting again. But still, like, I never know, like that could have ended up being like a real best friend of mine. Like, I was still just putting myself in situations to meet people. So you may be wondering, why am I bringing this up? Like, you're talking about FOMO and now you're talking about like trying to meet people in Sydney or whatever, but it all goes into one, so let me explain. So I feel like FOMO, so the fear of missing out and the feeling of feeling lonely and unsure and uncertainty of what the future holds or what you should be doing with your life, if you should be staying in Sydney, if your experience in Sydney should look different to the experience you're having, etc., etc. I feel like it all intertwines. So let's take it back a little bit. So if you're someone that is new living in Sydney, and again, let's take it back a little bit. So I feel like now there's a lot of people that are coming out and living in Sydney, like making a life in Sydney a little bit older than it used to be. And I do think a lot of the reason for that is because of COVID. Obviously, that put a hold on a lot of people's lives for a few years. So if you're someone like myself who came out when you were a lot younger, so I came out when I just turned 22, compared to if you're someone that's coming out now and you're like late 20s, so like 28 or something, you're going to have different experiences. And this is where FOMO begins to come into it. So during COVID, for example, I was actually up in far north Queensland because I was doing my farm work. So for the first lockdown, I was up and I was in far north Queensland. I was still able to work because it was classed as essential working, and I was still able to go to like these crazy waterfalls, these mad hikes, and just these insane like scenery places, because it was in my like limit of where I could travel. So my like walks that I was able to do looked a lot different to people back at home, who was like stuck in their house all day during the lockdown, you know, just rainy, miserable, gloom, stuck in the house with nothing to do. So these people literally watching my story are then beginning to get FOMO, right? Because they're like, well, how come my lockdown doesn't look like that? And they're then associating how living out here in Australia is going to look if they were to move out. But you have to understand a few things, which I'm going to go into a bit more detail in. Firstly, we're showing the best parts on social media. The majority of us are not showing the struggles behind the scene. So I may have had, for example, with speaking about what I've just brought up, that day I could have had the hardest day, because I'm not gonna lie, I did a few different farm works, but when I was in the banana shed packing bananas, and like just splitting the bad bananas apart from the good ones, it was the hardest work I have done in my life, mentally and physically. So draining, okay? Like, I would be in tears some day at the end of the day. It was such long days. You barely had any breaks. My back like felt like it was broken, and it was just such hard work. And I'd been doing it. This is when I had to do my 6-month farm work to get my 3rd-year visa. And just before I'd gone into the banana shed, I was picking berries all day, most days, which was also so physically demanding on your body. So from doing that for like 5 months and then going into a banana shed for the last month or 2, it was hard. So anyway, I could have had like a really hard day, but then the thing I would have chose to put on my story was then on the weekend when we went and did like a crazy hike with amazing scenery, and that's what I would have posted. So firstly, that person sat at home in their bedroom during lockdown is only seeing like one of the good things that happened throughout the week of a week of bloody hard work. So again, you're getting FOMO and the fear of missing out, and you're not actually knowing what really is going on in that person's life. So one, there's that. The second thing I would say is the age thing. So at the time I was 22 doing this, so my friends that are watching this back at home would have been 22 as well, for the people that were in the same year for me. But then after COVID, obviously we were all coming out of COVID. Like if you're my sort of age, I was around 25 and I was always the youngest in my year, so a lot of my friends were like 26. So what I feel like happened during lockdown, I'm trying to explain this, but it's a little bit hard to explain, so bear with me. So what I feel like has happened is, during COVID and lockdown, people were seeing our stories in Australia thinking how great it was, and they had so much time to think and reflect on their life and think, what do I actually want to be doing? Whereas these are people that maybe before COVID, before they had a lot of time to think, didn't really have any interest in traveling and moving to the other side of the world. But as I say, during lockdown, they're seeing everyone's stories out here. The same with people living in Sydney, like the second lockdown, for example. I was still locked up, like I still wasn't really allowed to leave the apartment much, but I was able to do my one walk a day, which would be down to Coogee Beach. So I would still have this really lush scenery to walk by. And that is the part I would choose to put on my Instagram. So again, these people back at home are thinking, oh my God, that is the life. Like, as soon as lockdown ends and I can travel, I'm moving to Australia. Like, I am done with this country. I feel like that was in a lot of people's mind back in COVID. But then what's happened is, when they then have moved over to Australia, one, they're a bit older than when a lot of us travelled out here. So again, if I'm just relating it to my experience and my age, a lot of people then coming over would have been around 26 plus. And again, let's be honest, when you do things when you're younger, it feels a lot more exciting and you have a lot less worries. Let's be honest that when you're in your early 20s, this isn't for everyone, but the majority of people, when you're in your early 20s, you don't really care because you feel like you have so much time. So you're just more interested in partying, having fun, drinking. And then what happens is, as you begin to go mid-20s to late 20s, you start to think, okay, maybe I need to actually knuckle down and get a little bit more serious now about what I want to do with my life and think about future plans and more long-term plans. So people are then coming out when they're also older. So not only do they have the same stresses as what we all had coming out here, like making friends, finding yourself an apartment, getting a job, all of that kind of stuff. Not only do they have that, they also have that kind of like personal, I don't know, is it personal? Is it society putting it on us? I don't know. I personally think when you feel pressure, it is what you're putting on yourself. So you kind of have that pressure on yourself that you're also, getting older now, you're heading into your 30s, and you also need to think long term. So people have then come out here after COVID so stressed because they're like, oh my God, I've got to start again. But not only do I have to start again, I feel like I need to start thinking about what I want my future to hold. So straight away, they're thinking of long-term visas. Guys, how do I get sponsored? Like I need help. I'm not on the skilled list, but is there a way I can get sponsored to live out here forever? And they're just manic and so erratic and all of these things they're trying to get done straight away. So I personally think that FOMO and the fear of missing out led a lot of people to come out to live in Sydney and Australia who weren't really maybe ready for it or didn't really want to do it in the first place. And that is why we're now seeing so many posts on the Facebook page I was talking about earlier, saying how they feel stuck, they don't know if it's worth it being out here, and they don't know what to do and they're struggling mentally. So yeah, I'm not going to go into that little point too much now because I feel like it's quite hard to explain out loud and without, upsetting anyone, but that's just like a theory of mine on what I think has happened there, and just to really conclude that point, I just feel like people overseas living at home see our stories out here and maybe instead of taking it with a pinch of salt are thinking how it really is sunshine and roses every single day. And so they're struggling at home with their life, and they see our stories and think, wow, like they don't look like they have these problems out there. So then again, because of FOMO and the fear of missing out, having this kind of life, they move over here, and then to soon realize that we do have very similar problems to the rest of the world and everyone back at home, but we don't always share that. But again, I think that's up to yourself to, again, take what you see on social media as a pinch of salt, and just use your brain and your common sense that not everyone's life is perfect. So that's just something I feel like has happened there, and that's why we're seeing all of this stuff pop up recently. But another thing I wanted to go into is similar to that, to people that have been out here for, like myself, 6 years, and then people that are just coming out here now. So there are some people that are just coming out here now and are actually loving it. Like, they are having the time of their lives. Like, this was meant for them. But then what's happening there is then for the people that have been out here for a very long time, and kind of done the whole like hostel living, making new friends, like drinking all the time, like not really having like work commitments because you're like new to being out here, so you haven't got a job yet, but you have lots of savings. What's happening is people who have been out here for a long time, who do have jobs they're committed to, bills they need to pay, they're on a lease. They're really thinking about their visas right now because they want to be able to live in Australia for good. These people are then seeing the new people out here, their stories, going out and drinking all the time and traveling all the time and having all these crazy experiences, and that's leading the people who have been out here for a long time to feel FOMO and think, okay, should I still be partying right now? Like, should I still be going out every weekend? Like, when does this partying like stop? Or when do I get serious about my life? So I feel like this is another thing that's happening right now. So let's talk about that. So there are so many different points I can go into about this, but I'm just talking about, ones that come straight to the top of my head for me, which is just based on my experiences, my friendship groups around me, the experience I'm having in life. So not everyone will agree and relate to this, and that is okay. But for the people that do, I hope this is really helpful. I just wanted to add that in there because I know there's going to be some people like, what? Nah, not what I want right now or whatever. But then this maybe isn't for you. This is for the people who are on a similar wavelength to the things I'm talking about and can relate. So, so what I want to say is these people that have been out here for a long time, or this might even be people that haven't been out here for a long time, but this is for the people that right now don't want to be drinking all the time and they want to set up a life. They want to be focusing on earning and saving money. They want to think about getting a house out here. Maybe they have their permanent residency or citizenship and they want to get a house out here, but maybe they've just had friends arrive from back at home who are not on that boat. They've just got on here. They're on a working holiday visa. They, again, have no job, but they've got a huge amount of savings and they're going out drinking all the time. And they're like saying to you, why aren't you out drinking? Like, you're so boring. Like, why aren't you coming here? Why aren't you doing that? This, that, and that. And it's getting to you, right? It's affecting you. Now, again, it all intertwines together, and it goes back to my point about the importance of when you do first come out here, or at every stage of your time out here, the importance of spending time on your own and doing things on your own, because it tends to ground you and remind you of what you truly want in life. And I think living in Sydney especially, I know this can be wherever you live, it can be in your hometown, but I think from living in my hometown for 22 years and then living in Australia for 6 years, and especially Sydney, and maybe this is a city thing, I've come to realise that it is party all the time here. There is always something going on, right? You need to know how to ground yourself and remind yourself of what you truly want out of life. And if that's not going out drinking every weekend, then you don't need to be doing that. What I find that a lot of the time, these people that are going out and doing that and posting it all over their story and calling you boring because you don't want to go out drinking every weekend because you've either done that like when you first arrived or you just don't like to do that. Well, like what I tend to find is the people that are calling you names or doing this all the time usually aren't really that happy, and they a lot of the time have some work to do on themselves and figure out what genuinely brings them joy. Now, that's not everyone. Some people just love to party and that's what they like to do, but there are a lot of people that are just projecting their shitty lives onto you because that's all they know to do. I always think back to living at home, and if I did nothing on a weekend, would I feel bad for it? And most of the time, no. So now that I'm making a life for myself out here, and I hopefully I'm going to stay here for a long time, why should I feel bad for staying in on a weekend out here? Like, what is the difference here to home? And again, I think it goes back to the fact that Sydney is a place where, and me and my friend were speaking about this, Sydney is a place where a lot of people just pass through. There's a lot of people here that only want to be here for their year on their working holiday visa or a couple years, and to them it's a party the whole time and then they go home. And I don't blame them because that was my first few years in Australia. But yeah, you have to just remember that everyone is at different stages in their life. You know, everyone is got their different timelines being out here. Everyone has different reasons why they're out here. So we need to stop looking at people's stories of them drinking or doing this and that and traveling and stuff and feeling FOMO. I know it's not as easy as that, but if we try and put everything into perspective and look at the things that I've been talking about, it might become to feel a little bit clearer and make a little bit more sense. And also another thing me and my friend were talking about, we were talking about the fact that all these people coming out here and they have loads of savings, like ready to explore and travel, yet like maybe there's other people that did save up a lot of money, but then they've had to pay for visas, outright, or whatever it is. I know there's a lot of people on student visas and that cost us lot a fortune. I say us lot, I am not on a student visa, but I know a lot of people that are. And then we're like kicking ourselves thinking, well, why can't we afford to go and do this and that? And everyone is on their own timeline, okay? And these people that have just got out here who are doing what the hell they like most of us did when we got here, they will soon be at a point where they are having the same problems that we face, because they may find themselves that they then want to be here long term, and it's time for them to knuckle down and ground themselves and think about their long-term visas, their long-term apartments, etc. So it all goes around in circles, it all intertwines, and I hope this is making sense to you guys. But I'm just trying to pull FOMO apart and make you understand that it shouldn't be as deep as we make it, and we shouldn't. Again, I'm not. This is easier said than done, but we shouldn't be letting FOMO affect us. Guys, this podcast episode is a lot longer than what I usually like to make my episodes, so I'm going to stop here. Again, like all of my other episodes, there is so much more I would love to add, but I just really wanted to pull apart FOMO and just break it down and really just try and put your mind at ease if you're feeling like that at the minute. If we break it down and we really look at things, and it's all about perspective, and we really just look at our lives and what we want and what we've done and what we've achieved, it really helps to put your mind at ease a little bit, and just understand that everyone wants different things, and that is okay. If you're moping around in Sydney right now and you're watching everyone's stories thinking, why doesn't it look like that for me? One, it probably doesn't even look like that for them. It's just a snippet of their day or week. And two, maybe you do need to take some accountability and push yourself a little bit more. If you don't want to push yourself a little bit more and you don't want to be out here and make it work, then you don't need to be. If you want to go and have some drinks on the weekend, then go and do that. If you don't, then don't. The point is you need to start living for yourself and not for other people. You need to, again, spend time on your own. It is so important. Whatever it is, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, you need time on your own to really remember what you're here for, what you want out of this life. Life is so short. I've said it before and I will continue to say it. Life is so short and you need to start living for yourself and doing what you truly want to do in order to be happy in this life and feel free, basically. Life is hard, and I know it feels like it might be getting harder and definitely more expensive, but let's be honest, at the same time, life has always been hard, okay? So I feel like we need to get ourselves out of this mentality that, like this victim mentality that everything is so hard these days, like it's so much harder. Yes, I know parts of it is, and things are a lot more expensive and it's bloody crazy and we don't get paid enough, etc, etc. At the same time, life has always been hard, and it's always been hard trying to navigate being in Sydney, and it always will. When you're moving to a new place with not a lot, it is always going to be tough, but that's when you need to put the work together and make it work if you really want it to. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this one here. I hope this makes sense and I hope you get something out of it for people struggling with FOMO in Sydney, and I love you all, and if you've got this far, thank you so much for listening. It genuinely means so much, and I hope I'm helping people out there, and I will see you whenever I next see you. Goodbye.